And that jarring cacophony tells you you're back with the Power of Three podcast, and the tune in the background tells you it's actually a Ninth Doctor adventure, or it could be an early 10th Doctor, but no, it's not. It's definitely the Ninth Doctor. Today, we're taking a chance to have a rare opportunity into print with Christopher Eccleston's incarnation. I'm Kenny Smith, and today we're going to be thumbing through Aliens of London, written by Joseph Lidster, adapted from Russell T Davies's original TV episodes Aliens of London and World War III, broadcast 21 years ago, kids. Be afraid, be very afraid, time has flowed by. So yes, we are taking a look at Joe's new novelisation. We're going to be joined by him a little later on, and indeed, the man who worked with Joe on this, Mr. Steve Cole. But let's take a quick look at the cover first of all. So we've got the Doctor and Rose there, one of those famous publicity pictures. Rose in her punky fish pink hoodie, holding on to the Doctor's arm as they look up at some danger. Behind them you can see the TARDIS with Bad Wolf on the side. You can see Big Ben, and there's 3 Slitheen. Looks like they're climbing over the ruins of London to try and get their grubby little claws on our heroes. Yeah, it's very, very good. Fantastic piece of work again from Dan Lyles. So let's read the back cover blurb. The Doctor brings Rose home a year after she left to find London in chaos. A spaceship has crashed into the Thames and an alien body lies in the wreckage. The Doctor uncovers a chilling conspiracy at the heart of Downing Street as ruthless alien invaders take control. Members of the family Slitheen. The Doctor, Rose and the MP for Flydale North must fight to expose the Slitheen infiltration before Earth falls prey to a deadly interstellar con that will ignite World War III. Starring Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor and Billie Piper as Rose, Russell T Davies's blockbuster action-adventure was the first 2-part story of the modern series in 2025. It is novelised by playwright and screenwriter Joseph Lidster. You may recognise his name from working on Doctor Who through the website, and indeed with Big Finish and Torchwood on the telly. So we are now going to pause briefly and hear how this book came about, and indeed all of the other Target novelisations. Who's going to tell us about them? It's over to him. He'll tell us himself.
Hello, I'm Steve Cole, the editor of the Target Doctor Who novelisations.
Well, Steve, we have 3 brand new Targets with us now. So can you maybe tell us a bit about the process of how they come to be picked?
The reason these 3 particular stories were picked was because publishing director at BBC Books, Albert de Petrillo, and James Page, in charge of all things Doctor Who at BBC Studios, kind of got together and thought, we've done a lot of novelisations of the recent Shooty adventures. It would be nice for the new Targets to go earlier back into that rich seam of stories that we've always enjoyed in Doctor Who. So really, I think it was a case of favourite stories, really. One for the 9th, one for the 10th, and one for the 11th. It was as simple as that. And then we all kind of shot around ideas of what our favourites were. And I know that Joseph Lidster had already approached Alba about perhaps writing Aliens of London. That was his really big ambition to do. So it kind of fell in place from there. I said how much I loved Matt's first Angel story, and James was in total agreement. That's one of his favourite of all time, I think. And I was always really interested in the Impossible Planet of Satan bit, which introduces such big ideas, and of course brings the Ood into our lives. And I'd met. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But really, it was a case of just picking some favourite stories and then hoping that some lovely people would like to write them. And happily, this is exactly what happened.
So we'll start with the fantastic Aliens of London by the lovely Joe Lidster. for somebody who's an accomplished playwright, and of course he's done a lot of Big Finish, done Torchwood and television. So for him to do prose, it was a bit of a new thing for him. So he's made a great job of it, though, hasn't he?
He has, and I think, informed by, obviously, as so many of us are, by the original run of Target novelisations. It is a cliche to talk about the influence they've had on so many writers, but they really did exist as this wonderful presence in the youths of a lot of us growing up in the 70s and 80s, and like a kind of comfort blanket that was there, I think, because when children read, they don't only read age-appropriate things. As we get older, sometimes we like to go back and reread some of those, and you see children at all stages. The people who are trying to challenge them and give them difficult texts, I say to them, no, stop! We're reading for pleasure here. And that means they get to choose what you want. You go back and you read something that is, you may find way too easy for you, but if you're enjoying reading it, and that's the whole bloody point. So when people talk about the relevance of novelisations in an age where everything's on demand anyway, that to me is a nonsense, because this is something that goes beyond about just re-experiencing a Doctor Who story. It's about rereading an old Doctor Who story, or reading it for the first time in these new series days. So I think that Joe wanted to have his own go at telling the story in prose, and that's a lovely gift to give to people, as long as they pay £9.99 for that gift.
Or buy the audiobook.
Or buy the audiobook, or indeed get it from their library.
Indeed. Support your local libraries too.
Definitely.
Why not buy it and get it from the library? So give the authors more money.
And get the audiobook as well, to support all the wonderful work that Michael Stevens is doing with his team anyway, there's enough of the plugs, Kenny.
Absolutely. But yes, so endeth the end of the Party Political podcast, the Party Political broadcast for the Read a Book party. Read a book party, there's a great thing. Everybody sits around and just reads a book.
That's the ideal introvert party. I've got a lot of questions to ask you.
So, of course, Joe's really invested in this one because there's lots of extra little bits to characters who we meet on screen and a lot of colour added, and he's having fun with it.
Definitely. I think, and that's what really comes out, is that Joe is having a lot of fun here, and also bringing a lot of pathos to it. I mean, I think what he does with the space pig is really fantastic. It's such a clever bit of writing. One of those scenes where he suddenly upends everything. You think, which is good. But also, of course, I mean, Aliens of London and World War III on television. It's, as it said on the front of the script, it's Die Hard in Downing Street. This is a full-on action movie happening over 2 episodes of television. But of course, to tell that story in prose, when we can linger on certain plot points or wonder to ourselves, well, how would that have happened? How did that happen? How are all the cabinet away? And so you get, a deputy prime minister suddenly with full power, these little niggles and things which never take away from the enjoyment of the show, but which, when you think about it, it'd be nice to have an explanation. And I think Joe did a really good job of covering a lot of this stuff, like how the Celine came by the bodies that they inhabit, a bit more of the political situation, where everybody else is, how a fairly young junior aide is driving so much of the action, and how Harriet happens to be, obviously putting it along as well. And there are so many lovely little turns from incidental characters, sort of like police officers, a fox, other residents on the Powell estate, and it really creates this sense of a world in which the story is happening. And just as Russell was doing on TV at the time, he was not just telling stories, he was building a world with Rose and the Powell estate and Jackie and Mickey. You have this much wider canvas against which the Doctor's adventures are happening. And yeah, Joe captures all of that really well and adds loads of lovely artistic flourishes of his own. So yeah, top work from the lad Lidster.
Absolutely. He's very much at home. This is his sort of territory, these characters, and you can tell that he enjoys building up the world of Jackie and the estate, and it's beautifully done.
Absolutely.
Thank you, as always, from Steve. And we'll be seeing him again very soon when we talk about another of these new novelisations. Which one next? Who knows? Let's see who replies to the emails first and fastest. Let's take a quick break just now before we hear from the author and hear an excerpt from the audiobook version. This has just been released by BBC Audiobooks, and courtesy of them, here's the first 5 minutes of the novel, and it's read for us by Camille Kaduri.
BBC Audiobooks presents Doctor Who, Aliens of London by Joseph Lidster, read by Camille Kaduri. Part 1, Aliens of London. Prologue. Monday, the 6th of March, 2006, Albion Hospital, London. The doctor was running. The doctor was always running. Usually, he was running away from invading aliens with ray guns or shrieking mushrooms with gruesome tendrils and nefarious plans for world domination. But today, he was running after someone. He was running down a corridor and he was chasing after a pig. A pig in a spacesuit. A pig in a spacesuit who that morning had crashed a spaceship into Big Ben and had then been fished out of the River Thames. The situation was deadly serious. The whole of planet Earth was on red alert. The Doctor, as usual, might be the only one who could save the entire human species. But as he chased the pig in the spacesuit, the Doctor found himself grinning. The universe, he thought, would never cease to amaze him. Wednesday, the 17th of May, 1995, the Powell Estate, London. Rose Tyler was trying to sleep. She often found it difficult to sleep because her brain was always making her think. Mrs. Flanagan said it was because she had a brilliant imagination. Tonight, it wasn't her brilliant imagination that was keeping her awake. It was her mum, because Wednesday night was the night Mum had the girls round. Rose always found them very silly and very annoying because from her bedroom she'd hear Auntie Susie or Auntie Bev saying something totally, completely not funny like, "He could fix my engine," and they'd all just start screeching and cackling. Rose thought they sounded like geese. Rose's brilliant imagination was picturing her mum as a goose when suddenly something scary started to happen. The door handle on her bedroom door was moving. Other girls would have closed their eyes because they were scared, but Rose was brave and kept her eyes wide open. The door began to push open, orange light shining through from the living room. A shadowy figure slowly entered the room. It was, of course, only her mum. Rose sighed as her mum tottered over towards the bed. She was doing that happy and sad thing that she often did after drinking too much wine. She was smiling her big, beautiful, best mum in the world smile, but Rose could tell she was nearly crying. She tiptoed over to the bed and stroked the side of Rose's face. She told her that she loved her so much. Rose Tyler was a clever girl. She knew why her mum was so happy and sad at the same time. One of the Wednesday girls was Auntie Sarah, who Rose loved very much, but Rose's daddy had died at Auntie Sarah's wedding, and her mum would laugh with Auntie Sarah lots and lots, and then she'd start to remember the wedding, and she would stop laughing. Her mum stroked her face and told her again that she loved her so much, and Rose said she loved her mum so much too. Her mum leant down towards her. She smelled of chips and vinegar, which Rose loved, and wine, which Rose did not love. "Oh, Rose, my darling, don't you ever leave me. You promised me." Rose nodded, and as her mum tottered back out to the girls, Rose hoped that the geese in the living room and her brilliant imagination would all be quiet so she could finally get some sleep. She took one last peek at the stars outside her bedroom window, and then she scrunched her eyes tightly closed. Friday the 17th of January, 2003, Bryn Hyfryd. Barry looked into the forest. It was dark, silent and still, but Barry knew that there were creatures living in the forest that could swallow him whole. He hated being so small and he couldn't wait to grow up. This wasn't the first time Barry had come to the forest. He often liked to sneak out in the night when everyone else was asleep. He'd always found it difficult to sleep because he was always thinking about the world outside. The world his family had no interest in seeing because his family were really, really boring. All they looked forward to was going to the market. Barry looked away from the forest and up at the stars. He really wished he could visit them because he wanted to have adventures. Big Ed's son, Little Ed, was always telling his friend Rossa about the latest adventures of Captain Pluto that he'd been reading.
Thank you so much for that, Camille. Now, you can get Aliens of London, the official audiobook release, which is available as an audio CD or indeed an audio download, and you can get it from Apple Books, Google Play, Hive, Kobo, Libro FM, Spotify and Xig with X's. And the information in this sleeve is exactly the same that appears on the novel, apart from the fact it tells us that Camille Cuduri reads this brand new novelisation of the 2005 BBC TV adventure. Camille Cuduri, who played Jackie in the BBC TV series, reads this adaptation of Russell T Davies's blockbuster action-adventure, and mentions again the first two-part story of the modern series in 2005. This reading was produced by Morrison Ellis, sound design by David Darlington, and executive producer was Michael Stevens. Let's now hear the main man, the main event, the one, the only, Mr. Joseph Lidster.
Hello, I'm Joe Lidster, and I have novelised Doctor Who Aliens of London.
So Joe, you're a Doctor Who fan of many years standing. What was your first target book?
Ooh, so I had this slightly odd thing where our library, school library, had a load of the Peter Davison hardbacks, the sort of those really horrible orangey yellow bright covers and boring, just him standing there holding a gun type covers. And I used to love them, but I don't think I really connected them with the TV series that I was watching, which would have been very late Colin or Sylvester. And yeah, I don't think I made the connection that it was the same thing. And then they had this other book, which was The Making of Doctor Who, which was The Making of the Visitation. And I loved that. That was fascinating. And then we had this school bookshop. And this school bookshop, I remember she had some Doctor Who books in. And then she got Dragonfire. And I was like, no, that's Doctor Who and Ace. That's the people I like on the telly. And I think that was the thing that in my head just went, oh, this is all one big show. So I couldn't tell you what the first one was, but it would have been something like Warriors of the Deep. And I loved it because it's so dark and horrible and grim and bleak and scary. And when I then, sort of, when you become a fan and you start hearing the received wisdom of and people are like, Warriors of the Deep, one of the worst stories ever. And I was like, it can't be. It's such a good book. There's a bit where a man kills his friend Karuna or something, and it's really heartbreaking because he's been brainwashed. And then, you watch the episodes, you're like, oh, quite bright. So yeah, I couldn't tell you what the first one was, but it would have been something like that. And then after that, I was, once I realised you got them in bookshops and that, it was just collect them all, really.
A bit like Pokemon for the kids.
Yeah.
Got to catch them all. So, how did the invitation for this one come about?
I'm sure I've probably said a similar thing to you in the past. Because whenever I get asked, how did you get this job? It always involves the words, I was in a pub. But this one, I wasn't actually in a... No, it was a pub, but it was a friend's birthday. And Albert Di Pacillo was there, and he's like the big boss, I think. And I sort of slightly tipsily introduced myself to him and said, you won't know who I am. And I think he did know who I was because he knows, I think because I've abridged books for audio before. So my name's been in the loop, I suppose, at the books company. And I just sort of slightly tipsily went, if you ever are going to novelise Aliens of London, I'd really like to do it because it's possibly my favourite ever Doctor Who story. And it was like, and then... So it had been towards the end of 2024, and then in February 2025, I got an email from them going, we've been told that you want to do Aliens of London. Do you still want to do that? And I was like, well, yes, please.
Well, that was probably the easiest commission ever then.
Yeah, the top tip to everybody, just go up to people and go, I want to do this.
That's an interesting tactic for life, Joe.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes. Joe Lidster's life lessons. So that's fantastic. So what was your process? Was it a case of watch the episodes, get the scripts, go through them, see if there's anything taken out?
it was. I didn't. I mean, at one point, I didn't really need to rewatch the episodes. I could have probably told you scene by scene because I do. I think they're so much fun. I love everything about it. But I did, yes. I rewatched the episodes a couple of times, got hold of the transcripts, and then I think basically because it's my first one, and I've not really got much experience writing prose. I've done a few short stories and things like that. Because it was my first, I think at first I thought this is probably going to be quite easy because it's all written for me. I don't need to do the hard stuff. The thing I find hard about writing is plotting. I don't need to do that. And then of course you start and you're like, and especially with Aliens of London as people remembering things, and I'd be writing sentences like Rose was remembering, and it was like I couldn't. It was like suddenly I was like I've forgotten how to write English. So basically, I think what I did at first was I knew what the first page would be, I knew what the first prologue would be, and I knew what the end of the book would be. That I was adding a little sequence at the end, and then it was just a case of sitting down and at first sort of writing it basically, sort of doing a sort of this is what happens in the episodes, and then I'd get to a character like the young policeman who's in the sort of first scene, one of the early scenes, and he's never seen again, and I knew I wanted a sense of, because it's such a global event, what happens. I knew I wanted a sense of all the characters, so then I started to create him as a character because he's not, he's got about 6 lines in the episode. So then I started to make him as a character, and then it was like, okay, so every once in a while I'd cut back to him, and then I started doing that with other characters, and I created this woman who lives on the Powell estate, and I'd cut back to her, and it sort of grew from that slightly organically. It was like, okay, how can I cut to these new people and build them up and build the connections, so that by the end of the book, what I wanted was a sense of 48 random people facing the end of the world and how they reacted to it. So yeah, so that was really fun. And then what I did was basically I had a sort of email conversation with Steve Cole, and we did a Zoom. And on the Zoom, I said, I've got 3 questions, and they are gay, fat, tortured. And what they were is I said, because Rose says to the doctor, "You're so gay," which is a very 2005, 2006 thing. It's not something that personally bothers me at all as a gay man. I think I say it to my friends, but there is a difference between Billie Piper saying it looking beautiful and wonderful, and she's just astonishing, saying it casually in the episode, and then a spaceship lands, and the words written down in black and white. And so I said, I'd really like to keep it in, because I feel it's very much in Rose's character. She's not perfect. She can say stuff like that. But then what I did was I said, but I think if I do it, I could have her reflect, and it's maybe a bit of a silly thing to say, which I think means it stays in. We don't make it, we don't hide from it, but we do acknowledge that actually in print, it probably does look a bit. If she just said it in print, and then the doctor looked away and looked out and the spaceship landed, you'd be a bit like, oh, that's a little bit dodgy. And then there was fat, which was the Savine basically. I don't think the word fat is ever used in the episodes, but it's larger people. And again, it's that thing where that needs to be got across in the story, because you need to realise that's, the Savine do take bigger people. So I changed it so they're big people, so they could be fat, they could be bodybuilders. I've added about a foot to Joseph Green's height, things like that. So I've made them bigger people, which again just smooths over anything that might look a bit odd on the page. And then the big thing was Torchwood, because I don't even know if she's got a first name in the episodes, but Dr. Sato is obviously Naoko Mori, who in Torchwood, it was never established they were the same character until right to the end when she died, and they literally reference it, which means she is Tosh from Torchwood, which at that point in Doctor Who doesn't exist. And I'd always been a bit like, I quite like it, I don't, in my naughty brain, I don't like it when William Hartnell's Doctor Who in a book mentions Gallifrey, for example. I do sort of think, oh, it just doesn't fit. And with this, I was like, I don't know what to do. And we said, well, basically, she's either got to not be from Torchwood and change it entirely, or I've got to lean into it. So then it was a case of working out what her motivation was, because obviously when they made the episodes. There was no, she wasn't going to be this character in Torchwood. Well, Torchwood's mission is to capture the Doctor. So why doesn't she capture the Doctor? So I have to go, well, Torchwood 3, Jack's got a different mission, obviously, because he loves the Doctor. So his thing is, you're going to protect him. And even then, I mean, she's still, but then once you're mentioning Torchwood, you then sort of have to mention Torchwood 1, and so on. So thankfully I found, as I think you find when novelising, you find, because although I've never novelised an episode before, the closest thing I did do was the Sherlock TV series. I did John Watson's online blogs. And what you find when doing stuff like that is that there are things that you don't need to acknowledge in the TV, in the visual episodes, but if you don't acknowledge them in print, it looks a bit odd. So there's a Sherlock episode where they go to the circus a few times, and they always go at night, which looks great, and it's stunning, and it's exactly how TV should be. And then when you write it down, you're like, well, what are they doing during the day? Because we just cut to the next thing. And that's what you find. So with this, for example, you find that Jackie gets over the whole thing with Rose very, very quickly because the spaceship lands. No, that's perfect for the TV. You don't want scenes of Jackie crying. You want aliens and pigs and Westminster and everything like that. But on page, it was like, great, it's perfect opportunity for me to add some of my own stuff, add some new scenes and things like that. And that's what I ended up doing with the Torchwood thing, was I was trying to find a way to explain what Torchwood was. What I realised was that Harriet disappears for quite a bit in the first episode. She sort of has a scene or two where she's introduced and is obviously astonishingly brilliant. And then she kind of disappears for a bit. So I've got her hiding in the loo. And she reads the emergency protocols, which obviously then I've got a reason to spell out what unit is, what Torchwood is, who the Doctor is.
Something that I was particularly amused by was the fact that the very opening of the book is the first scene of New Doctor Who that was shot. I just thought, brilliant. That is absolutely...
You're the only person so far who's ever spotted that. Nobody, as far as I know, has got that. That's why that scene is there. And it was a really early thing, I thought. And it kind of helped me be a bit more... I don't need to slavishly follow the episodes, because when I knew that was the opening page, well, it's going to be the first scene they shot, because it just amused me. I thought it was a nice, fun thing to do. Then you start going, well, then what do I do? Do I then go a day before Doctor Who and Rose landed in the TARDIS, and so you start going, well, actually, no, I can do with the little prologues that set up, ongoing strands. Someone else spotted.
I'm glad that I spotted it, because I read it and I just thought, clever Joe. So I just thought, yeah, that's good. I picked up on it. That's fantastic. I mean, there's lots of wonderful stuff in there, just sort of, as you mentioned, like building up the cops. So they're getting to look at the Slovene policeman, and you're from things from their point of view, and building in backgrounds for them, so that he'd once been the life and soul of the party and things like that, and all these backgrounds. And as you say, like making Joseph Green nearly 7 feet tall, and all these other characters, just making them literally larger than life.
I think what it was, I mean, I knew I wanted a different character at the Power Estate, so I created Molly Steer, who's named after my nan. So I knew I wanted just someone who wasn't connected to anything, and we could go back to her a few times. And then and so then the young policeman happened, and then you sort of went, well, actually, there's another policeman later, so maybe they know each other and they can have a little scene together. And so just sort of build all that up. And then it actually was the one that I had no plan to do at all was the security guy at 10 Downing Street, who's, again, the character's got a few lines, but I found myself, I think what I found was, what I was doing was I wanted some human characters. And although Rose and Harriet are human, they're in a very... They know everything that's going on. They know everything that's going on about the aliens or whatever. Obviously, Doctor Who's an alien, so don't really do his point of view. The Slovene are aliens. So all that's left in 10 Downing Street is a lot of extras and this one guy who basically says, get out and things like that. And so it's a case of then going, actually, I want to build him up a little bit. So I made him, he's very by the book, follows all the rules, and then he ends up saving everybody's life because he stops following the rules. He tells everybody to get out when they realise the missiles come in. And then goes up. And Camille Kadouri's reading of him saluting and shaking hands with the other guy is really lovely. It's really moving.
Yep, talking of Camille Kadouri and Jackie, lovely you're able to build in sort of more of a friendship between Jackie and Mickey that we get to see in Parting of the Ways, but we don't really get to see at other times, and that sort of makes that make more sense.
Well, that was, again, it was a slightly... I think if you look at Rose the TV episode, and then Aliens of London, there isn't a sense that Mickey and Jackie are particularly close. I think it was then that the Powell estate built up to be a thing. Jackie and Mickey were both charming characters. They were united by being left behind by Rose. And I think that's sort of what happens in the TV episodes. But I think retroactively, in books and audios, including like the Rose novelisation by Russell and things like that, it's established that Mickey's an orphan, basically, and he was brought up by Jackie and everything like that. And so it's a case of, well, I want that, because that's really lovely. But at the same time, just spent a year accusing him of possibly murdering her daughter. So it was then able to go, actually, I can merge those things. And again, it just adds a little extra element of Jackie and Mickey, as, a scene I'm quite proud of, where they sort of forgive each other for everything. It's just they've been so messed up by Rose leaving.
You also get to throw in a bit of future continuity as well by bringing in the American president Arthur Winters, which I thought was very funny, sort of tying up the sound of drums.
It's that thing. I mean, I do love all that. I love world, but the sense that it's all one story. But Doctor Who at that time was very much that. You would get, that was year one, obviously, but that had Bad Wolf in it, but you will then have, by season 2, I mean, you're getting references to Torchwood. Everything is connected. Everybody is involved. That you feel like Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, and Doctor Who are all happening in the same universe. You get Vote Saxon posters in Torchwood. You get, everything like that's connected. So I just looked at it and thought, well, yeah, he would be the, why wouldn't he be the president in this? If they'd known what they were going to do, we'd have had a scene with him. So yeah, it was nice to just reference him and say how unpleasant he was.
Did you have any contact with Russell during the writing, or was it just pretty much left to do
it? No,
it
was left to do it. I didn't touch his dialogue. Some was deleted, and obviously lots of new scenes were added. But his dialogue from the episodes is as it is in the books. Is in the book. So no, didn't have any contact with him. Didn't know about any. Didn't do any deleted scenes or anything like that. No, literally just got on with it. It was quite it was at times it was a bit like, no one's checking. I'm waiting for an adult in the room to come in and check on me. How's it going? And eventually just like, anyway, here's the book.
Oh, I love it. I mean, also, we mentioned the first chapter. Of course, the space pig finally gets a name. We'll discover that his name is Barry.
And that was an odd thing because I think I'd worked out that I thought, just in my head, well, again, just that thing of going, oh, what could I do that's, not just write out what happens in the episodes. And I suddenly thought, well, if I did a prologue where it's from the pig's point of view, but he's basically Rose. He's a child who wants to travel and see everything, and he's basically quite similar to the character of Rose. And then at the end of it, reveal that he's a pig. So right at the end, you reveal he's got trotters and a snout, and he squeals. And then I thought, and then I could have a lovely epilogue, because I did my second ever job when I was 13. I worked on a pig farm, and they're horrific places. I mean, I don't eat meat anymore. Pig farms are genuinely traumatizing places to be, especially as a 13-year-old boy. So I wanted to do, just a little thing to that, a bit, sort of Robert Holmes vegetarianism thing. And but then what was interesting so I wrote the chapter. It was the first thing I wrote because it was this is joyful, what a fun thing to do. And I read it out at the Target Book Day, events that happened last year. And that was the bit I read out because I thought it was quite funny to just read that out. And then the books all, I can't remember who read it and who did it. So it was Steve. And then I can't remember if it was Steve or somebody else after Steve who pointed out that Russell himself wrote about the pig being bought by Margaret Slavine in Doctor Who magazine or something. And do you remember whoever it was who I said, oh, has anyone got, it must have been the BBC. It was quite late on in the process. And I was like, oh, well, has anyone got a copy? No. So I had to ask all my mates to go, has anyone got, I had to find it first online. I found when it was 50th anniversary. It was an anniversary, and looked it up on like a TARDIS wiki type page and found this thing about this horrible farm. There's a nice farmer, and she refuses to sell to Margaret Blaine, and then there's a horrible farmer who does sell. So I thought, hopefully it could fit, and I managed to get hold of a copy. A mate sent me a copy of it, And yeah, basically it's very lovely farmer. She doesn't sell, and it's more the story of her life. And then she reads about how the woman bought the pig from a nearby farmer, who is, I think, named, and things like that. So actually, what I had to do was rewrite the chapter entirely to make it fit with that. So it was still the same sort of thing, but it had to be different characters and so on. And yeah, I think had to be that. So it fitted. It should all fit nicely.
And fitting nicely, you also have an appearance from Muriel Frost. Give her a little bit more. That old DWM character.
Yeah, well, because it's a bit odd. She's named. I don't think she's named in the credits, is she? But she's named on the websites and things, and it sort of seems to be quite common knowledge that this one woman is Muriel Frost. And again, it was a bit like the torture thing. You suddenly go, well, if it's Muriel Frost, I haven't read or heard. She's in a Big Finish, I know, and I know she's in some comics I have. Oh, she's in that Sylvester McCoy comic, isn't she?
Mark of Mandragora.
Yeah. Oh, I loved that as a kid. Teenager, probably. Oh, I'd forgotten she was in that. Oh, well, that's sad. But yeah, I had to sort of go, again, just TARDIS Wiki comes to rescue, because it was like a cart of pages and pages of Muriel Frost remembering her adventures with Doctor Who. And so it was like, okay, I'll keep it brief. And actually, I thought by keeping it brief, it means it actually has an extra tragedy to it, because she keeps thinking, oh, I should say hello to the Doctor. Oh, no, wait, we'll talk in a bit. And then she does not.
I have to say, chapter titles, they were fantastic. I did laugh at the likes of A Policeman's Lot Is Not a Happy One. Happy one.
That's because my brother-in-law and sister-in-law do a lot of Gilbert and Sullivan, and I hate Gilbert and Sullivan, and they know this, but I always go to support them, and I'm like, is it one about pirates, or is it one where people sing?
I think you had a good laugh, particularly Buffalo Stance made me chuckle.
It doesn't even mean anything. At first, I was like,
"No,
well, I've got to give I've got to give them chapter titles." And then I was like, Buffalo Stance. That's a great tune. And I was like, it's got nothing to do with the chapter.
But hey, he's taking a stance while using the word buffalo. There we go, Joe. We've rationalised.
Correct. Yes, that's the thinking behind it. I was quite pleased when somebody owes Mickey an apology.
Oh, very, very good.
Because that's one of my favourite lines in the episode. It just cuts to this random couple, and one of them goes, "Somebody owes Mickey an apology."
Yeah, that was fab. I love also the fact that there's various characters in there who are named after friends of yours, and the way that things should be done, but also very nice that you've got the book dedicated to Tristan Fear's memory as well.
Yes, that was, they were, I have to say, so people won't know, so Tristan was basically my best friend, and he died suddenly towards the end of last year, aged only 30, and it's worst thing I've ever been through, won't ever stop being the worst thing I'm going through. But at first I didn't think about it, but the fact is I've named a character after him, and he's in the thanks to credits, acknowledgements at the end, and I just thought it just feels so weird that he lives in the book and his passing isn't mentioned. And I have to say, the editorial assistant at BBC Books was so good, because I sort of emailed her and just said, I know it's all signed off, but is there any chance I could have an acknowledgement to my friend? And she made it happen. She was so brilliant, just absolutely. And she kept coming back to me and going, right, so how do you want it framed? Because there's another acknowledgement to my mum, who I used to collect Target books with. So the assistant was emailing me, and she'd be like, well, how do you want it framed? How do you want it? Da, 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 da. So they were so kind to do that. And yeah, it means a lot. And it sort of means a lot to a lot of his, he loved Doctor Who, and a lot of his friends do. So I'll get messages from his friends saying, "Oh, it's so lovely to see that." So yeah, no, very happy we managed to do that.
So can you tell us a bit more about the opening chapter in its original form?
It's completely rewritten, but it was one I read at the Target Book Day. Absolutely terrified, because I'm not an actor, I'm not a public reader. There's people like Matthew Sweet there, who's so erudite and brilliant, and then you've got me go, oh, don't do that, that's awful. And then you had me running in late, sweating, basically ran onto the stage, stood there shaking, holding this thing, read it out. It went down really well, and then so I'm like, oh, this is good, I feel good about myself, yay. And then I get the note from the BBC going, oh, that chapter doesn't fit with what Russell wrote, so you'll have to redo it. Or cut it. And I was like, I don't want to cut it, because I love the epilogue, so I don't want to cut that. So yeah. it was quite. That was probably the most terrifying moment of it, just because I was so absolutely wedded to the epilogue, because not just because I thought it was fun, and not just because I was like, how lovely they save a load of pigs, but because actually the episode ends on a slightly down note, because it ends on sort of Mickey and Jackie walking off separately. So I changed that because I thought, no, let's have them stay together. But because obviously what it then has is a next time. So you see, next time Doctor and Rose have an amazing adventure. Whereas I thought the book doesn't have a next time. It's nice to end on the Doctor and Rose, because there's quite a lot of sadness in the book. There's a lot of sadness. I mean, Jackie, what she goes through is awful. And I've touched on, when she's lost Pete, so to lose your husband, and then your daughter disappears for a year, and then your daughter chooses to not stay for dinner, let alone for anything else. I mean, I love it. Rose is really quite selfish, and that's brilliant. She's such an amazing character because she's so brilliant and funny and clever and everything else, but she's also incredibly selfish. And you realise watching the episode, she really does sort of play with Mickey a lot. She's very sort of, maybe we're still going out, maybe I'll come back. It's like, it's brilliant. And Russell's writing obviously is astonishing. And yeah, so I knew I wanted to we have to end on a scene of why Rose chooses to do this, and so it needs to be something absolutely magical of Rose and the Doctor doing something. And I thought, well, it'd be nice if it ties in with poor Barry.
So Joe, you've done this one. You'd obviously, as a writer, you're always happy to get work, so would you be interested in writing another Target?
I would love to. I found it really hard and really quite scary and intimidating. I was so worried about the word count, because the word count was quite vague, and I was like, am I getting there? And at first I was so like, although I did a couple of prologues, I was terrified to add anything else. Can I add new stuff? And then ended up adding a whole chapter about, I want to say Oliver's backstory, the wife and the thing, because I just went, well, why not just write a chapter? Well, that's what Terence Dicks would do. He'd add a little scene. Why not do that? He's the god. Let's try and at least, touch his bootstraps. It's like, let's at least try and vaguely do what Terence did. So that's what I thought I'd do. And by the end of it, I just had this confidence about it of, I can just add stuff. I can make the security guard a person. I can, suddenly you're finding everything fits in a kind of end of the world scenario, and just this bit where the young policeman right from the beginning is crying outside the pub, and that just really moved me writing that. And I was like, this is great. So I've sort of got this confidence now of, I think I would really enjoy doing another one, because I'd be like, right, let's get it. Let's take what's brilliant and then try and just enrich it more. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I'd love to do another one.
Yeah, you're very much you've always built your reputation on being somebody who gets inside people's heads and writes good character stuff. So I think, yes, more Powell Estate stuff from you would be good. So
I'd love more Powell Estate. Yeah, anything. I mean, I'd do any story would be amazing. But yeah, I'd love to do something with, from season 1 or season 2 about that, the Powell Estate gang. Yeah. Especially as I've created new characters
exactly
for the Powell Estate, who are, because I did look on TARDIS Wiki, so I was like, well, let's have Jackie have lots of people around for the spaceship, in the way that the TV episode wouldn't do, because budget and everything like that, and it's a small studio set. Whereas actually it's a book, everybody goes to see Jackie because Jackie's brilliant. Yep. And so I went on TARDIS Wiki, and if you click on a name, there's like a category where it says residents of the Powell Estate. So you click on that. There's so many people live on the Powell Estate, thanks to all the books and CDs that have come out in the last 20 years. The Powell Estate is like a TARDIS. There's like 1 million people living on it, all at different numbers, all at things like that. So I've used a few of them from different things and then created a few more. So yes, more Powell Estate would be amazing.
Oh, Love and Monsters, I'd love you to have a go with that.
Well, I mean, I adore Love and Monsters. I mean, it was that when I was doing Mickey's website game thing. So that was the first. So Christmas Invasion onwards was when I was working sort of freelance for the BBC, and so it meant I got sent the scripts. And I just remember getting the script for Love and Monsters and being like, "This is the best Doctor Who story ever made." And I just remember I got the script for Love and Monsters and thought, this is one of the best scripts I've ever read. Not just a Doctor Who script. It's so powerful and beautiful and funny and dark. It's so horrible. These really nice people, really horrible stuff happens to them. And I never got the final joke. but we still have a love life. I didn't get that at all. I'm so innocent and naive, clearly. But everything was like, this is the rudest thing in Doctor Who. And I'm like, what? They just say they kissed. Oh, right.
Oh.
But yeah, no, I love that. And again, it's what I've tried to do in Aliens of London. I love the, Jackie's loneliness, but she's not someone who sits around being lonely. And I love that. And I think that's, and her scenes in Love and Monsters, where she realizes Elton is playing her a bit, is just stunning. I mean, Camille is so good. So yeah, Love and Monsters, Father's Day, Parting of the Ways. I'll do all of them.
Yes, that's good.
Listeners, write into BBC Books and say you will refuse to buy any books written by anybody not Joseph Lidster.
Doomsday and
I'd love to do
Cybermen as well.
I love the Tylers. I think the Tylers are such a real, funny, heartbreaking, tragic, brilliant family. And there's something about Jackie, I just think she's one of the realest people. Although it's, she's just a fun character. It's a big, it's a big performance of a big character. There's something so real. I believe that woman lives in South London. It's such a true to the real world thing with her and the family. All of them, please.
And anyone looking for more Jackie Tyler from you should check out your Big Finish short trips, which are amazing.
They should. Available now from Big Finish. I think very cheap. Short trips are very cheap.
They are.
Yes, Jackie Tyler has 2 little adventures in the what's it called? The universe. Meta Crisis. Beats World, that's it. With the Meta Crisis Doctor. So that's lovely. And Camille is astonishing in those as well. Very lucky to have written for her a few times now.
Very much so. One final question, Joe. Was this ever called World War III, or was it always Aliens of London?
It was always Aliens of London, although because I saw someone mention it online and it amused me so much, I did at one point say, please can it be called Doctor Who and the Aliens of London? And I was told, no. So no, it was always Aliens of London. I just think London's so important to the story, although obviously the whole world is at stake. It's a very London story. There was a nice moment when writing it when I realised that, because I know that area quite well, I go past Downing Street often when I go into town, that road, and Westminster Bridge. If I get the bus into central London, I go over Westminster Bridge.
Yep.
And it was that realisation of Rose, about 3 days ago, she ran across Westminster Bridge to the London Eye with the doctor, and now she'd be in a police car, going across Westminster Bridge to Downing Street. And it was a nice moment so I think, it had to be called Aliens of London because it's just so much about that area. Yeah. I mean, the only thing I did change was there's a bit where after the spaceship's gone over their heads, it sort of cuts to them on this quite busy road. And they can't get into sort of central London, but it looks quite central London-y. And I was like, they're in Kennington or Southwark, whichever one it is. So they can't be there. So I got them going to a tube station and trying to get the tube and realising that. So, but it also meant that they got to watch the spaceship hit Big Ben on telly, which I thought was quite fun because that's what the world is doing. So yeah, that was a bit of London that I did change. But yeah, it was very it has to be called Aliens of London because it's London. It's brilliant.
Yep. Fantastic. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for a brilliant read.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Do I have to listen to this interview so that at the end I can hear, we gave this 6 out of 10?
No, there's no review, but I'm just saying, I'm giving it a 10. I'm telling you that right now,
because
I really enjoyed it.
And
it's everything that I like, and it made me laugh in several places. So
that's what I wanted. It's because it's, I think every writer, when you start off, it's let's do tragedy. And this story, there's a lot of sadness in it, a lot of darkness in it. I mean, you can hint at things like I hinted that Harriet's mother probably has Alzheimer's or so. You can hint at stuff, but also you want to use joy. Otherwise, you don't care about people. You have to care about people. My favourite joke that I put in was that Jackie doesn't think the events of Rose were aliens, so she believes the government. So when she says to Mickey, "I was attacked by an alien tonight," and he's like, yeah, you kind of were attacked by aliens a year ago, weren't you? Oh no, the shop dummies, that was just a hallucination because of the gas, because that's what the government told her. And I like the idea that Jackie Tyler spends the rest of her life not accepting that first alien invasion was actually aliens because she believes.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, thank you. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you. It's been fun.
There we go. Massive thanks to Joe. You can get this book for £10.99, available in all good bookshops in paperback form. And it's also available in ebook form, but I don't know the price for that. Sorry. If you've enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave a review for us on your podcatcher of choice. You can follow us on social media at Power of 3 Pod on Twitter, at Finished Zine on Blue Sky, and we have a Facebook group too. So come on and tell us, what are your favourite Target novelisations? We would love to hear from you. So time's running out, and earlier on Joe mentioned a particular song title, and I think it'd be appropriate for us to play out with that one. So let's have a bit of Neneh Cherry and Buffalo Stance. Until next time, I've been Kenny Smith. Bye!
Baby, not romance.